Welcome to the Pigskin Party Podcast, the only podcast that combines real NFL analysis with a splash of pop culture and a dash of the random. Let's get this Pigskin Party started with your hosts, Brian McFadden and Will Southard.
Welcome back to the PPP. It is time for the flavor of the week. My name is Brian. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. And, as always, tell a friend. That is how we grow this here Pigskin Party. Just got done recording the main NFL episode. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Will Southard. It's a little bit later in the day for you, being on the East Coast, than it is for me. I'm still, I think, waking up, even after that episode. But how are you feeling, Will?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. It's a little stormy down by the Disney Princess Castle. So, but we'll be all right. We'll be all right. It's a good day. It's a good day to talk about things tangentially NFL related, as we like to do on this episode.
What we were debating, do we call it the tangential NFL episode or flavor of the week? Yeah, flavor of the week has a nicer ring to it. We're bringing back our guest from the main NFL episode, Laurie Fitzpatrick, who is a podcaster looking to get back into the podcast, and she's a writer for DraftWire for USA Today and a Jaguars fan. Laurie, how are you feeling? You ready to keep going with this thing?
Dude, no nap needed. I'm ready to go.
Nice. That's what I mean. And we were talking, she's normally on the East Coast, but she is currently in the West Coast. So her body is on East Coast time, and I forced her to wake up at 7 a.m. to be ready for the show. But she has been a champion, and we really appreciate that. So for those of you who are not familiar with how we do this podcast, we're going to talk about a tangentially related NFL topic, as Will mentioned, but we are never going to go from a full episode of NFL talk directly into our tangential flavor of the week topic without giving you a little bit of a breather. So we're going to do our palate cleanser, a little off-topic discussion where we just cleanse your palate before we go on and keep talking some NFL stuff. So what we're doing this week for the palate cleanser is what we started to do last week before I called an audible after we started talking about the Snyder Cut for Justice League, and that is, now that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier has ended with its finale that just aired, so if you haven't watched it yet, please know that there's be some spoilers here. We are going to compare the two MCU Disney Plus series, WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, as I started to do last week, I'll do it again this week. I'm going to start with you, Will, because you are you have opinions, and this was your idea to do this comparison because we actually have talked about WandaVision on the show before. So give me your WandaVision versus Falcon and the Winter Soldier take.
I mean, I think at a super high level, right? Like at a 30,000 foot view level, it's probably, who knows if it's COVID related or not, but probably is, that the MCU has been sort of, I don't want to say sidetracked because that feels kind of wrong.
Put on hold.
They've kind of been like relegated to like these short Netflix series that focus on, specific people. So like when you think about,
and to be fair, that was the plan before COVID. They announced this, a couple years ago.
Sure, but what I'm saying is like when you think about these series, like, and you think about like how this would exist as a movie, right? Because you think about these things, and I don't know, they're okay. Like, both WandaVision and the Falcon Winter Soldier, I think, to get to the heart of your question before we get into that, I mean, obviously, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a lot more serious, right? And in that way, I enjoyed it more than WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was a weird experiment sidetrack for the MCU that I just was like, okay, that happened. Like, I didn't hate it, because I don't think Marvel could make a thing that I would actively hate. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoy watching the Green Lantern. I don't care, right? Like, if it's a comic book movie, I'll watch it.
Ryan Reynolds would disagree with you, but that's
Ryan Reynolds. Anyway, so there's that. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a lot more like in line with traditional Marvel stuff.
It felt more like a Captain America movie, yeah.
Kind of, but there was some things about it that I wasn't a big fan of either. So. I don't know. I would say, in general, huge fan of the MCU. These two shows, they were okay. They exist. They're canon now. Like, whatever. But I preferred Falcon and the Winter Soldier much more over WandaVision, for sure. Because it was more in line with what I expected.
Yeah, you wanted it to be just fed to you nice and comfortably, and
No.
you don't want anything outside of the box.
No, I just don't want a weird, like, you know how, like, sometimes you go on a thing and you date people that, like, you just not your type, and you just kind of want to do it, you check it off your list, and you think, let me try something different. That was me with WandaVision, and or that was the MCU with WandaVision, and it's just like you realize that, like, nah, that's not for me.
Laurie, you mentioned to us that you have seen WandaVision, but you haven't seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So you can just give us your thoughts on WandaVision specifically as a series. What's your take there?
Yeah, I liked WandaVision. I think that it took a little long to kind of get going, which, like, I think was something that they kind of prepared for, because it was a show. It could have just been a movie, though. Because I don't think, like, a lot of the stuff really made a difference. Like, they kind of, like, sped stuff up. Like, oh yeah, like, our kids are gonna just want to grow up when they want to grow up. Like, I feel like some of the stuff was just kind of like they threw it in there to waste time. But in the end, I really liked
the
it.
entire first episode. The entire first episode, where you're like, what even is this? Like, I wanted to just turn it off because I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to last 5 minutes. Like, oh yeah, obviously it's some weird TV thing, but then like it went the whole hour or whatever, or half hour, or however long that show was.
I feel like it took like 3 episodes to really get going.
It really did.
Yeah, it
just
was like
because
episode 4.
I am not like a huge, like, you know, Marvel fan. I don't know much about, like, these movies, to be honest. But on Twitter, you know, you guys kind of helped me figure out which show am I going to watch next. And WandaVision was all over everything. So I was like, okay, I have to watch this. So, like, it was really annoying that it took, like, 3 episodes to actually get into. And it took multiple sessions for me to kind of get going. Because I was like, I don't know if I want to continue to watch this. It's like the overacting of, like, yeah, honey. And it was just like, what are you getting at here? Like, what's happening? Is it black and white? Is it not? Like, is it color? Do you have kids? Do you not? Like, but once they started to kind of, like, once the outside world started, like, chime in, that's where it really started to get interesting, like, for me. And just, like, being able to see the difference between, like, and then the whole, like, plot and timeline finally started to, like, fill in for me. You know, like, everything about her brother, and I mean, it was kind of weird in the terms of, like, what the heck is happening, but no, I liked it overall. It was an adventure for me, and yeah, it was cool. I liked it.
So I have seen both. Just finished Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I definitely liked it, but I actually like WandaVision more, and I'll explain why. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as Will mentioned, much safer, much more comfortable, much just kind of classic MCU. It was nice to see a deep dive into Anthony Mackie's Falcon and Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier, just to get a little bit more character development there. But at the end of the day, it was just another... It didn't surprise me, really. What I liked about WandaVision, and I'm a huge MCU fan, is that it broke up the formula a little bit. And I knew what it was going in. So it's a little bit different for Laurie, who found out on Twitter, like, hey, you got to watch this show. I knew what I was getting into. I knew that they were going to have this sitcom-style presentation, having an ode to all these old sitcoms from the 50s, and each episode was a different decade. So the first was the 50s, then the 60s, and the 70s. They came closer and closer to modern time. I just liked that it was different and refreshing. Now, honestly, if it would have done that for the entire show, no, I wouldn't have been as happy. But I thought it was good how they did that for the first few episodes and just slowly started peeling back the curtain about what was actually going on. And then at the end of the day, she full-on turns into the Scarlet Witch. She's no longer just Wanda. She is the Scarlet Witch from the comics. That's going to have huge implications in the MCU going forward, including in the movies, specifically in the movies. She's supposed to be in the next Doctor Strange movie, so there could be implications that affect the entire MCU. So I liked both. Like Will said, there hasn't been a Marvel property I haven't at least found entertaining. There's different levels of quality. Thor: The Dark World is one of my least favorites. I'm actually rewatching the MCU with my son, who's watching it for the first time, and it's awesome. We're at Iron Man 3, and he's just loving all of it. And I'm a little dreading that Thor: The Dark World is next. But the Falcon and the Winter Soldier it was just like, okay, that's cool. He's Captain America now, but I wasn't like WandaVision at least surprised me. It was different. It was a palate cleanser. It cleansed my palate from all the formulaic MCU stuff.
So I should watch that then. I should watch that then, Winter Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I mean, it's going to be important to set up the future, for sure. Like, you're not going to understand. Like, if you don't, and you come in and you like, they make a Captain America movie, and you're like, how the hell is Anthony Mackie in this? You'll be like, all right, like, you know, it'll
Where'd
make
he get the
sense there.
shield? What's going on? Yeah.
So,
Like,
but
I know a lot about the stones and all that, like, but I don't know like much though, to be honest. Like, you know.
So that's interesting. So you watched WandaVision having not really seen the other Marvel movies?
Like, I've seen them. Like, somebody tried to force me to watch them before. And
Like
so,
all
like,
of them? Because there's like 23 of them.
I know there's a lot. Like, and like there's like an order that it kind of goes in and everything.
Yes.
But I know about the premise. Like, I understand like those stones thing, like the immortality type, right? With
The Infinity Stones.
So let's put it in football terms. So in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Anthony Mackie and the Winter Soldier run a cover 2. And a new guy comes and splits the safeties.
Okay. All right. Cool.
He runs a seam route down the middle.
Thor is the guy on the side that you don't really ever going to throw to.
Yeah, you just hate the guy.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
He's the distraction.
Here's the thing about the and this is not, especially in the wake of the news this week in the real world. This is like not going to be a popular opinion. But and let me explain before anybody like craps on me for this opinion. So like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier ended in a real heavy pasted on like social media or social context style, right? Like real big narrative on like, you know, the struggles of Black America and all this kind of stuff, like heavy in the last episode. And I wouldn't, and here's the thing, it's not like I'm not saying like I don't like politics in my MCU, like not at all, right? What I'm saying is like that was not the theme really that heavy of the entire show. Like it was there, you know, when they talked, when I forget the old dude's name, the Isaiah, God, what was his name in the show?
Isaiah Bradley.
There was a little bit of that, right? So they started to kind of sprinkle it in, and then at the end, like it was it just, to me, it was hit so hard that it kind of just, it made me notice it, and it kind of took me out of the show.
Like out of
right?
nowhere?
It wasn't out of nowhere.
No, because they had undertones.
It was
of
a
that throughout the
crescendo.
whole show.
It was a crescendo, and at the
building
very
to that.
episode, it like hit really laid on thick. And so, like, I get it, but you could have done that without so much of a stark difference. You know, I mean, and like, so
I don't know, when you have a black man who's taking up the mantle of Captain America, who's an icon from the 1940s and on,
I'm 100%
you can't
for that.
ignore the gravity of that.
I agree, and I also think that it's good, right? I mean, like that's why Black Panther was a good, you know, MCU property for being, you know, what it is, right? And it's crucially important for both women and people of color to have representation in the MCU, 100%. And I'm also on board with him being Captain America. I just think the way that they sort of like hit it in the last episode.
Too
You know what I
heavy-handed is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was just like, I got it and it's good, but like now it's kind of just like, all right. So so you know, please don't take that as an opinion where I just don't want my politics in the MCU. It's not that, and it's not that I don't like how it turned out. It's just it was kind of a weird way to end that for me. And I guess the whole episode was them setting that up. I mean, the whole series was them setting that up.
Right.
But now we have like this. What's the thing that like you evolve past, but it's still there for a little bit, like dudes with nipples? You know what I'm talking about? Vestigial,
What?
vestigial organ. It's like doesn't serve a purpose, but it's like still there. That's John Walker now. Like so, as this like other Captain America thing. Like
Not
he's still there.
So he's from the comics. He is now the U.S. agent, which is exactly what he turns into in the comics. He's a part of the Dark Avengers, which is where the Contessa comes in. So yeah, I don't think he's just there. I think
He's male nipples. He's male nipples. He doesn't
That's-
serve a purpose.
That's Will's official analysis that John Walker as U.S. agent is male nipples. Okay, that's a good a spot as any to keep this rolling. I was feeling cleansed. I don't know anymore, but I'm assuming you are, Will.
How you doing over there, Laurie? You gonna make it?
I'm just loving this. So, you know, it's great. Will cleaned his palate. But now Brian's not sure where to go. It's great. It's great.
This is a recurring theme here, where we're just not sure where to go, and this thing tends to go off the tracks.
Yeah, the thing I don't like about John Walker. Here's the thing, is he's not a comic book fan. Wyatt Russell, like, he's like, I don't even know why I'm in this show. Like, I'm an actor. I get paid. Like, whatever, right? Like, I think it would be different if I like thought of him as like a, somebody who's like, it's kind of like the Trevor Lawrence discussion, right? Where like. Everybody like crapped on Trevor Lawrence.
Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I love
everybody
Laurie.
crapped on Trevor Lawrence when he said like I'm not like football isn't like the end all be all of my life, right? And it's like I don't think that's fair, right? Blah blah blah. But like if you're not even a comic book fan and you like somehow get like one of these marquee roles in the MCU, like
yeah, but if you're
a good
different. Actor and you understand the script and you understand what to bring, I thought he did a great job.
It's like being a tattoo artist and you don't have any tattoos.
Kinda.
That's a good analysis. Good analogy.
It's like you're good, but it's like, why don't you just like it then?
Do you get it?
Do you get it though?
I guess, man. I don't know.
Well, here's Laurie, are you feeling cleansed? That's what we want to know.
It's
yes,
like being
absolutely.
It's like being a barbecue pitmaster and being a vegan.
That is extreme.
Yeah, but you have to taste your food though. So that's it. That there's no way that would happen.
Yeah, good point. All right, so we're all semi-cleansed, I guess. Make sure to check out WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier if you have not. Laurie, you watch that show. It's completely different than WandaVision. It's a little bit more straight up, a little bit of spy, a little bit of a lot of action. Good movie. So let's move on to our main flavor of the week topic, and it is a topic also that Will brought up that he wanted to discuss. So I figured we'd do it this week, and that is Hall of Fame hype. Which players are getting too much, which don't get enough. This was kind of spurred by Julian Edelman, who recently announced his retirement, and immediately the discussion broke out, like, is Edelman a Hall of Famer? He has fantastic playoff numbers, but nowhere near the resume as a lot of other wide receivers who have not got in. We had Kevin Brumley, the Sports Muse, on last week, who mentioned Torrey Holt, and he's like, if Torrey Holt is not in the Hall of Fame, how can Julian Edelman be considered? But that's why we're going to discuss that here. So I will let you start it, Will, since this was your idea. Any players that you think get too much or too little Hall of Fame hype, and why?
Here's one of the biggest misses, I think, in the Hall of Fame right now is the fact that Zach Thomas isn't in it.
Yep. I was going to bring him up if nobody else did.
I know you were, and I hate it because he's a Dolphin. But like, I have right now in my closet a Zach Thomas jersey. Like, I was a huge Zach Thomas fan.
I wasn't aware of that. Bonus points.
I got a Ricky Williams, too, if you want to see that. I got a lot of Dolphins jerseys.
You're a closet Dolphins fan, just admit it.
I was a Dolphins fan.
Literally.
Back when I was in UF.
Literally, everything's in the closet that you own from the Dolphins.
No, I want the Dolphins to be good. Like, I mean, I have to pick a Florida team, right? Here's the thing. And no, this is not a discussion of my NFL fandom. But, like, I live in Florida. Like, I have to be right now it's Tampa for obvious reasses, right? It was the
Tom
XFL
Brady,
Vipers.
So you're a front runner?
Listen, I'm sensing a little heat, a little pressure. Well, first of all, Antonio Brown, big fan of that, so that's there.
Okay.
Will likes players. Will doesn't
I
follow
like players.
teams.
Rob Gronkowski. It just so happened that all of them met up in Tampa, and I needed a Florida team. Here I am. But circling back,
so if they all went to Jacksonville, you'd be a Jaguars fan.
100%. 100%.
You lie.
I like players. Listen, so I'm going to be interested in Jacksonville this year anyway. I mean, let's be honest. And honestly, when Tom Brady retires, Gronk probably dies, Antonio Brown goes crazy again, right? I might migrate over, and we'll see. But anyway, what were we talking about? We're talking about
Hall of Fame.
Oh, hype. Zach Thomas, right? Comparable Ray Lewis numbers. I mean, he's very good. But, I mean, I think the discussion we were having last week was looking at somebody like Julian Edelman, right? Like, what does it actually take to get into the Hall of Fame? Is it just numbers? Is that all the Hall of Fame is numbers?
So let's talk numbers as it relates to Zach Thomas. I actually just pulled this up. So during his 13 seasons, 12 with the Dolphins, he finished with 17,000 tackles, Over 20 sacks as a middle linebacker, 16 forced fumbles, 8 fumble recoveries, 17 interceptions with 4 touchdowns. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler and a 5-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, and 2-time Linebacker of the Year, AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year, and was named to the All-Decade team for the 2000s. How is that not a Hall of Fame resume?
It is. It's just not right now. Right? Like, that. Can we all agree? He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's just, I don't know. You just got more people to put in. You got to wait for Peyton Manning, and then you got to wait for Peyton Manning's forehead. Like, those are, that follows him up. He kind of drags behind him.
Don't make fun of foreheads, man. I'm on a 5
Dude, look at this.
Scale.
My hairline is a McDonald's arch, and I'm not loving it.
Will is on, like, the 10-finger scale, I think, so.
Listen, whatever, Mark McGrath, flip up. So
that's a compliment. I won't take that as an insult.
So yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, it's weird, right? Like, it's weird how they pick people to go in there.
There should be an honorable mention, honestly, and it should be for those guys that are on those Hall of Fame teams, because then those guys would get in. Like those teams that were really successful, like Julian Edelman when he was on the Patriots, and
Julian Edelman.
Torrey Holt when he was on, the Rams.
Yeah, Torrey Holt. Great example, right? Like,
yeah, Jimmy Smith, he did pretty well when he was on the Jaguars, but he's not getting in either.
So it's weird, like, I wonder if the Hall of Fame should, and they're not going to, but should just do something different, right? They have the limited number of seats that they select every year, spaces they select every year, right? And, it's kind of weird, it's like they feel like some years you have to put some people in. You have this thing like TO where it's like you're biding your time. Like, I don't know, like, could they just elect people to the Hall of Fame differently? Like, could we just agree, like, on some criteria, and then whenever you become eligible, you just get in? Because it's weird sometimes to see, like, these dudes from, like, the 70s, right, get in the Hall of Fame now. It's like, really, now? Now you finally get it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, for
all of a
40
sudden his
years,
resume looks better. Like, oh, no. Wait, now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, like what happened to the previous 15, 20 years? Yeah.
Exactly. It's strange, man. It's strange.
It is strange. I think something needs to be added or changed or something. Because, yeah, you're right. Like, these old guys coming in, finally I made it 1 year before.
Yeah.
It's like... Did you get to enjoy it? It's like the Alanis Morissette song.
When you have 17,000 tackles, your brain is probably scrambled eggs. So there's that. You got to get in before you die. But, like, what is the criteria? Is it stats? Is it, like, clutchiness?
Right.
Because, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of... Is it Pro Bowls and All Pro? Is it... What are we talking about? It's a little bit of everything.
Because I hate the tackle stat, by the way. It's like...
Right.
It's like you have to tackle. That's the point of the
game. If your entire
like,
defensive line misses the run, and the running back is just running into you 10 times a game, that's not always a good thing. That means your defensive line sucks. And you're just getting the tackles that are left. Yeah. But
it's like the corner stat. Sorry, when like you're not targeted, but there's no stat for them not like being a shutdown corner. Like they just don't throw your way.
Right. And
there's
you
no
don't
stat for that.
You don't have pass deflected, you don't have interceptions, but that's literally because they're not throwing to you. How can you rack up those stats? Exactly. Completely agree with that. I think we can't ignore the narrative function of this. I mean, it's the same with the MVP race, right? It's like there's always there has to be a narrative involved with a lot of these things. The Hall of Fame is no different. Zach Thomas is a workman type, and was a workman type NFL player. He wasn't flashy. He didn't make headlines. He just went and performed year after year. If you're talking any of the stats that Will just mentioned, whether it's actual stats, whether it's Pro Bowls, All Pros, his resume is a no-brainer, but the fact that he hasn't got in yet kind of speaks for itself. I want to talk... Go ahead.
I mean, you can talk more people. Like, Reggie Wayne is still not in the Hall of Fame.
Wow, really?
No. Crazy. I mean, he's always thought of, like... He's like the Robin to Marvin Harris's Batman, right? But, I mean...
But once Harrison left, Wayne was the guy. He was a stud.
I mean, Tony Baselli, he's the only Jag that I can name from, like, the original set of Jags, right? Way back in the day. That's probably just because I wasn't a
Does Jacksonville have any Hall of Famers? No, really.
I don't know.
So MJD, Fred Taylor, none of them.
No. Actually, Wait, Fred Taylor may, but Tony Baselli is like the guy that's been snubbed like more than.
I mean,
anybody.
his career ended a little early, prematurely, so there's that. But I mean, I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, here's the one I wanted to bring up, and it's, I think, maybe the hottest debate that I've seen, and Phillip Rivers is partly thrown in there. Actually, our writer, Ross Crawford, wrote a great breakdown defending Phillip Rivers to the Hall of Fame, which I recommend checking out. But it's the Eli Manning debate. Because if without those 2 Super Bowl runs, which you have to give him credit for, he beat Tom Brady twice and the Patriots, which I'm eternally thankful for. But that's basically what he has to hang his career on. Those are big things to hang it on, but if you win 2 Super Bowls in the manner that he did, is that enough to get you into the Hall of Fame?
I mean, he's got that consecutive streak start that ended because he got benched, which is weird. So who knows, man? That's one of those things. It's like, should the postseason count higher weight than the regular season?
Who did he get benched for? Was it Geno Smith or somebody like it? Was some?
I don't.
I have to look that up.
Somebody who's not great. No, it was God, it might have been Geno, or it was one of those like washed up. Anyway, so you feel like the postseason should count for a little more, right? But the reason it probably doesn't is because your team makes the postseason largely based on team play, right? So like the fact that you're put on this stage is not really like your doing. So I mean, I can see a lot of arguments for both ways, unless it is, right? You know, in many cases, but sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
So I mean, like Julian Edelman, you know, which is a really good example. That offense was completely different without Edelman and without Gronkowski. And Gronkowski's
But that's the
going to
thing,
be in
it's
the Hall of Fame.
like it's one or the other, so I don't think it's good enough in my book.
But you can be somebody who makes clutch plays all the time and allows your team to keep moving down the field.
So Manningham,
and win.
let's just throw Manningham in there then, right?
Manningham?
Mario
the
Manningham?
Like the wide
Oh.
receiver that, helped
From the
Peyton
Giants.
Manning. Yeah, like just because he made a good play, But
It
like
was
I
Eli,
don't think,
but yeah.
yeah. I don't think that like Edelman should be in there before anybody else at all.
You did see the catch that... Yeah, well, hang on. You did
Here
see
we
that
go.
play,
Here we
right? You saw that.
Yeah, that was amazing. I'm
That
not
was
gonna lie,
not Tom
It was
Brady.
like centimeters from the ground.
That won
But-
that Super Bowl, by the way.
Okay, but then by that same logic, David Tyree should be in if we're talking crazy Super Bowl winning catches.
Yeah, but it ain't just one time.
I know.
Like, there were a lot of postseason times that he did things like that.
And why was that? Because of Tom Brady. So it's like,
That was an overthrow. I'm a huge... So, like, I guess...
but can he
To
do
not-
it without him? That's the real question. And that's where it's like, then you can weigh it. But if it's like, if he's nothing without him, then he's just the honorable mention from Tom Brady. Like,
Well, if according to that logic, what happens if Bill Belichick never has another winning season? Does he?
a great
It was all
question.
Tom Brady. Does Belichick not? Oh, but I would love that.
I mean,
but it
you
won't
can
happen.
never unentangle the NFL, right? You can never say, like,
Yeah.
this guy by himself is X, Y, and
there's
Z.
too many variables.
I mean, Tom is doing a very good job of, like, trying to buck that, right, because of what he's doing. But he never will. Because even if they win a Super Bowl again this year, right, and then he retires, which he probably would at that point, it's 2 years to like 20 years, right, or however many freaking years it's been. That's not enough, right? If you had a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick who just won 7 Super Bowls, all with different teams, right? Like, then you have an argument, right? That the guy's just that amazing. But because you have these career people, I mean, Manning Super Bowl in Denver, he's not one of those transcendent. Obviously, they bring something. Like what Manning brought to the Broncos for that Super Bowl was not a cannon of an arm. In fact, they carried his lifeless body to that Super Bowl. What he brought was leadership and culture and mentality,
and intelligence, and on the field as a coach on the field.
That's a Hall of Fame thing too, right? Because otherwise, why would Tom Landry be in the NFL, or I mean, in the Hall of Fame, or any of the coaches, right? So all of that kind of rolls into it, and I guess that's what your argument would, I guess, have to be for Eli. Other than the fact that he's related to Peyton Manning.
It was Geno Smith. I was right. So Eli was benched. His starting streak was ended by the illustrious quarterback Geno Smith. So let's get opinions. If you were a voter and Eli came up, Will, would you put Eli in the Hall of Fame?
It's such a sore subject. Not for a while. Not with everybody else like waiting and waiting their turns.
Right.
You know, like maybe in like 40 years when we run out of people to put in there, we can come back and circle back to Eli Manning. But I don't know. You know, it seems like there's such these good people, and also, on the same token of like we could then put more people in that deserve to be in, we could also put less people in, right? Like if we come on a year and we're just like, well, I don't know, like we'll just put one dude in, right? Like the Hall of Fame class this year is this guy. Congratulations! Like everybody else do better or retire. You know.
In other words, not be forced to find additional people just because you want to fill a quota or whatever.
That's how dudes get in like from 40 years later, right? Is you're just like, oh, we got to put somebody in. Let's see who's on the cusp, you know? I don't know.
Laurie, what about you? If you're a Hall of Fame voter, which way are you voting Eli Manning?
No. Like, I know. I mean, my competitiveness it outweighs my, like, bias. Well, I mean, it controls my bias, to be honest. And I have a bias against Eli Manning. Growing up, in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And literally hating him and then seeing him fail multiple times. Throwing interceptions, like, just not being the guy to kind of take it over the top. And the Eagles kind of destroying them all the time. Like, only that, 1 or 2 years where he was, like, successful. But overall, he's a good quarterback, but I agree with Will.
And both of those seasons were not like, they went 14-2 and just tripped. No, they were, I think both years were wild card teams.
No, I mean
the
from the wild card, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they were,
they beat the undefeated team, so they went, and that's like I use that argument all the time. Like you can get into the wild card and win the whole thing, if you get on that streak. But that's another reason why I don't think he deserves it.
Yeah. I completely agree. So, I mean, you're going to give the Hall of Fame to a guy because he got hot twice at the exact right time. Yeah, it's great. He's got 2 Super Bowls. He's knocked off Brady and the Patriots, which, once again, I'm very thankful for. I loved seeing that, especially the first one when they knocked off the undefeated Patriots. But I don't think that's enough. When you got players like Zach Thomas and Torrey Holt and Tony Baselli and these guys who are just much better at their positions than Eli was.
He just got lucky, man. It's just it makes me so mad. I love Peyton so much more. And to see him, like, feel the way he did, like, when Eli won, it was just like, he deserved that, man.
I mean, there's a, if you want to talk about, like, the nepotism angle of the NFL, like, let's be honest. Like, the only reason that he's even in a consideration is because his last name's Manning. Right? Like, that's the only reason.
Yeah, that's the narrative that we were talking about, right? He's a Manning, so he's NFL royalty, so he gets a little bit extra credence there, rightfully or not.
We could talk about Shanahan, too. Like, why he's even in the spot he's in.
Kyle Shanahan?
He's really good coach, though.
Kyle Shanahan is good.
No, I know, but, like, there are a lot of people that were qualified, that could have taken that spot, too. But I just think that, names have a lot to do with it. There is that narrative.
There's names, there's relationships, like the fact that you talk about Howie Roseman. He is so in with Jeffrey Lurie in Philadelphia that even though, they won a Super Bowl together, but the team has just rapidly deteriorated since.
Shambles.
Right. They got rid of Wentz, they got rid of Peterson, but Howie Roseman's still there. So, but...
Well, they finally fired Bruce Allen in
Washington.
Yeah. Finally.
It's just all about, it's relationships. It's about who you know. It's about your name. There's so much more than just looking at the resumes. Any last thoughts on the Hall of Fame?
Is Antonio Brown a Hall of Famer?
he certainly was on the trajectory before everything that happened. Do you when it comes to the off the field and the personal issues, like, you know, T.O. is kind of a similar candidate. Do you weigh that in?
Well.
No, I don't think you weigh that in.
You think it's purely football based?
Yes. It should be, in my opinion. I know that you have to be a stand-up citizen, you have to be a model, and, you know, kids look up to you and stuff. But I mean, football is football too. I try to draw that line. I try not to get too much
I think
into that.
from what we've seen right now, I mean, if Antonio never plays again, I don't think so. But I think if he comes back and he's like somehow finds a spot where he can like resume that kind of career and he plays a few more years, I'm not sure that the legal stuff that he went through is enough to disqualify him. It's certainly going to delay him. Like, he's not going to be like a first ballot guy.
I would less referring to the legal stuff and more referring to like his mental breakdowns that cost him a spot with Pittsburgh and cost him a spot with the Raiders and cost him a spot with New England. Like, there's a dark cloud.
Didn't they find out that was Ben though?
Well, I don't know, because you had Le'Veon Bell left as well, so maybe there's. But the thing is with Antonio, he also got kicked off the Raiders and the Patriots, so you can't even say it's been like clearly he's had other examples of him not
the
working
Patriots
out with
was because of that legal thing. So I get it does factor in. It's all about like the timings and everything. That's a tough question though about Antonio Brown.
I think Will's
that's
right.
a good question.
If he's got a few more seasons to put together some additional stats and he keeps playing a few more years and has some success, I think he's close. I think he's close, and he certainly could make a case if he puts together a couple more good seasons. All right, so I think that's good. Let's wrap it up. This will be dropping on Friday, so hopefully if you're listening to this, you already watched the draft, the first round, maybe the second round.
Justin Fields is a Patriot.
Justin Fields is a Patriot. You heard it here first. Will, of course, not predicting the future because this is releasing after the first round, but we will see if he is right or not. Once again, thank you to Laurie Fitzpatrick for waking up early on the West Coast, even though your body's on East Coast time, joining us on the Pigskin Party podcast. Definitely will have you on again. The Pigskin cross promotion between your podcast and ours is just too much to ignore. Tell everybody again where they can find you.
On Twitter at Laurie Fitzpatrick, on USA Today with the Draft Wire, hopefully the Touchdown Wire as well, and on SoundCloud, Ponytails Talking Pigskins, and YouTube as well.
Awesome. Will, thank you as always for being my co-pilot and just sitting through and saying whatever crazy stuff that I'm going to be editing and listening to later. Thank you to Anthony, our producer, for editing this with some technical difficulties. He is probably still sleeping, so he'll be learning about this later. Thank you all for tuning in. If you were tuning in after watching the main episode, we really appreciate it. If you just tuned in for the flavor of the week, we love you guys too. Rate and review as always. Tell a friend. Subscribe. Check us out on Twitter, official PP Pod, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Check out our Discord community. Always great discussions going on in there about football and non-football related topics. And as always, we will see you next week on the PPP.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Pigskin Party Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. We'll catch you in the next Pigskin Party.